Hello and welcome to Galata Plus. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Taanakkaran, directed by Tamizh. The film is streaming on Disney Plus Hotstar. The Tamil film industry might be the only one where there are two diametrically opposite kind of cop films. On the one hand, we have the Singham kind of film where we have a big hero playing the cop. And in these films, cops are glorified to no end, even if sometimes they end up looking like vigilantes. In fact, there is an unwritten rule that a star does not become a star until he plays his first cop role. Even Sivakarthikeyan has done this. But Taanakkaran is the second kind of cop movie which follows the footsteps of films like Visaranai, Kavalthurai Ungal Nanban, films like Jai Bhim, and the recent and most excellent Writer. Now what happens in these films is that we see the rot in the system. In the first few frames of Taanakkaran, we see how the Indian police force was created by the British. And they created this force as servants to the system so that they would not oppose the system. Apparently, nothing much has changed. Except for one small flashback, all of Taanakkaran is set within the confines of a police training camp. This is where we have young recruits like the person played by the Vikram Prabhu character. We also have middle-aged recruits because they've been selected a long time ago, but they had to fight long court cases in order to get to where they are today. And during the training, all of them will be pushed to the extreme because the cops in charge, played by Lal and Madhusudan Rao, they are like the British in a way because they want to create bootlickers and not people who challenge them or the system. Taanakkaran is interesting mainly as a document of what police training is like. I mean, there are very few toilets and there are long lines of recruits outside, and yet they have to be at the police training ground at 4:59 a.m. Elsewhere, bribery is encouraged, and the good cops, played by Bose Venkat and a most excellent MS Bhaskar, they are constantly overruled. Through them, you realize what happens to honest cops or what happens to cops who don't bow before the system, and the story gets going when the Vikram Prabhu character, he gets on the wrong side of Lal and Madhusudan Rao, the senior cops, the bad cops of the system, so to speak. When they realize that this man has an individual mind and a thought of his own, when they realize that he is not going to be a bootlicker, it becomes personal, it becomes one man against the system. Now, writer-director Tamizh, he does not want to make a film as hard-hitting or as focused as Visaranai or Writer. He has chosen to make the film in a more traditional mainstream template. Gradually, we see that the story heads towards something like Lagan, where there is a squad and they have to accomplish something that is near impossible. But the problem here is that while in Lagan, we got a sense of the whole team, whereas here, Vikram Prabhu is almost a kind of hero. The light constantly shines on him and he is given everything that is of importance in the screenplay. Now, heroism in the movies can be two kinds. It can be overt, like one guy being a very obvious kind of dishum hero. It can also be a smaller kind where Vikram Prabhu is asked what is his caste, and he says, I don't believe in disclosing my caste in public. That kind of hero who stands up, and even though he doesn't have an action scene, he kind of is showcased as the kind of hero. At night before going to sleep, he reads Karl Marx. So he is that kind of man, and this is a more subtle kind of heroism which nobody else in the film gets. So Vikram Prabhu is made to stand out in the midst of all these other people in his squad. On the one hand, you want a movie which is telling you how difficult this whole process is for everybody, and on the other hand, you're focusing mainly on this one character, and that is where Taanakkaran loses its kind of balance. The writing is very broad without much specifics, and there are some very abrupt transitions, but the main problem are two songs. There is actually a love song in this movie, and this must be the first movie where I've seen a love song without an actual love angle. There is also a lot of unconvincing and ill-fitting melodrama, especially in Vikram Prabhu's flashback or in the suicide attempt by one of the trainees. No doubt these are all true events, but the way they're shown on screen, they kind of, jar in tone with the other things all the time. The first half has an episodic, disjointed feel, but the second half is more focused. There is a very clear end goal in mind, and this climax, that's not bad. And I was very impressed by how Tamizh has it both ways. On the one hand, he says, you cannot beat the system, however hard you try. But on the other hand, he also says, if you are an individual, you can try, even if you know in your heart of hearts that it's going to be very hard. And that is a very good thought to leave a film with. That's the end of the Taanakkaran review. If you like this review, do subscribe to Galata Plus and see you soon at the movies.